Hello again, book lovers, and in this instalment I'd like to tell you about Origins of the Common Law by Arthur R. Hogue. Now, Mr. Hogue died in '86, so this is a pretty old book. Now, I believe it's still relevant if you're studying medieval history, and it was recommended by Malin Baker, who is someone whose opinion I trust, and has been pretty fail-safe so far. This is a niche audience, possibly. You'd have to like history, I suppose. You'd have to like legal history, I suppose, and you'd have to like the Middle Ages a little bit. Now, I like this book a lot. I liked it from the front cover, which shows a lovely old map of an English village. Oh, I should stress, of course, this is English common law, and the book makes the point that it's a quite idiosyncratic development that gave us our legal system. Probably nothing similar in all the world except North America, to where it was imported on the back of a good reputation. We land in the medieval village with its open arable fields, woodlands, wasteland, the north field, tenants' meadows, the common pasture, with the pinfold in it, and some tofts. The common pasture. And that's why I bought this book. Because I've recently been wondering about the limits of individual human rights. I'm a very, very strong supporter of individual human rights. But I've begun to think that there must be a point where the individual's right rubs up against the commons, taken in the sense of things that people believe to be commonly acceptable. Here's an example. I like shooting my gun into the air at night. I'm not hurting anybody, I'm not aiming at anybody, but I've got neighbours who have animals and they really don't like it because it distresses the animals. What's the solution? Let's take the guns away. Let's let some fireworks off, which is, as we're in England, not America. So I'm letting the fireworks off and they're making a lot of noise. I'm having a great time and it's my right. I can do it. Might even be before 11 o'clock at night. To what extent do the community have the right to tell me, no, you can't? Now, that's a strange reason for reading it, isn't it? But it's tied with a lot of the philosophy that I've been reading over the years. Robert Nozick's answer to John Rawls' theory of justice, where he confronts this head on, has always been a sticking point to me. Let's take an example from Nozick. Everybody decides to put lights in the streets and everyone has the benefits of a street light, but one chap, let's say it's me, just says I'm not paying. So what do we do then? We block the light out so that that person doesn't benefit from it? Now this bleeds into what is often called the tragedy of the commons. Because this is based on the idea that if you have a common resource and one person decides to cheat, you will very soon reduce the benefits of the common land for everybody. Well, that was a lot of waffly background, wasn't it? But let's look at the book now. The book is put out by the Liberty Fund of Indianapolis. It turns out Mr. Hogue was American, and begins with a historical background before centering into the 13th and beginning of the 14th centuries in England, which is, according to the thesis of this book, when it all kicked off. Of course, the lively-minded listener will say, wait a minute, Magna Carta, yes, that's right in there, isn't it? 1215. A lot of things about the Magna Carta, a lot of things about the lives of Henry II, Henry III, who was accused of mismanagement due to over-reliance on foreigners. Finally, we arrive at the field of our study. Pardon the pun. Free tenures and their obligations. Unfree tenures and their obligations. Now, it's a bit of a leap for us modern-minded people to go back into medieval times. That's why I love this kind of stuff. What did people eat? How did people travel? What rights did they have? Here are a few things that I discovered, lovely little niches of history. And there are many more in this book. So just as a for example, here you've got the common land. You can see it all on the front map. Just in front of the Lord's domain. And the question is, do we just let the villagers pasture their cows and goats and sheep on this land? Is it available to be planted? What is the crop rotation system? And of course, who has the rights to what? Well, the animals get left to their own devices within certain confines. Can't really control what they eat, how they behave, as long as they do behave themselves and don't run away. You could also let your pigs into the woods for the right of pannage, which is the right that you have to let your animals go grazing in the woods, looking for acorns, leaves, whatever they want. Often free, sometimes paid for by one of the very pigs that were loosed in the forest. While we're in the forest, I should say you have to blow a horn if you're going through the forest at those times. If they catch you in a forest and you're not supposed to be there, that's pretty treasonable stuff. All the forests belong to the king, and all the animals and game on the land also belong to the king, and you can only take a certain strictly allotted amount. If you happen to be just passing through the forest with your entourage, blow horns all the time so it doesn't look like you're a furtive poacher. Quick parenthesis, another of the beauties of this book is the medieval language alongside all the legal stuff about assizes and reeves and felonies and fearfulments. We get some fantastic Old English words concerning these ancient rights, which I will look at in interesting etymologies in the Bulldogs series. That's Bulldogs with a Z for Zaragoza. Haven't done it yet, but will do. There are plenty more episodes on there if you want. So here we are, we're in the fields and we have to divide them up, and we do divide them up and we fence them off. And they're also quite narrow strips of land. And this is done so that people get a fair deal, that's the idea. So you don't have the waterlogged bit of the field or the arid bit of the field or whatever it is. And another thing I discovered, yes, these are spoilers, but there's plenty more stuff in this book, and I do recommend it. In the old days, they didn't have books. The records were kept on scrolls. And these were very difficult to transport, as they would sort of unfurl as they went along and take up more space. And as we see in this book, a lot of the origins of the legal system comes from the travelling lawyers that went around the country with the monarch of the time. So there they are with these rolls and this problem of storage. So they have an idea. They think, well, we'll stitch the top of the next roll to the bottom of the last roll, and that way we make one long roll and we can roll that up, and there's more chance that that will stay rolled up and take up less space. And what's the knock-on effect of that? Well, picture yourself as a lawyer in 13th or 14th century England, and somebody says, we need to see precedent. We need to see a test case. Oh, I remember, that was it August 2 years ago? I think it was then. Have a look, just go and check. No, of course, today I can whisk through the information on my computer. In those days, guess what? Then the poor lawyer has to get the huge roll out, unfurl it all, hopefully be able to locate the one that he's after, and then make a copy of that or take the information or whatever. It's little insights to the everyday lives of people that make me so interested in this subject. Another thing that I often reflect on when reading history is how fantastically well we have things today. We seem to be at the peak of achievement. It's strange that we feel often depressed or sometimes troubled or dissociated from the world when, as a historian of any period will tell you, you couldn't have been born at a better time. So did I find the answer to my question in this book? No, I'm still mulling it over, but I had a great time reading it, and I certainly deepened my knowledge of that particular time and place. So, if you want to know where our English legal system came from, this is the book for you. Put a little magnifying glass onto the most important period, and voila!